Good morning and welcome to another video analysis by paulbooma. Now we're having a look at the dollar in. Now I'm noticing that back in 2007 this 78 level, it's had a couple of very strong hits, and then we see that this up in this region was where the crash, and the March low was up in this region here. Now a couple of obvious trend lines that I see back in here. We were travelling in a channel. We've now moved back into and price currently at the top of the channel, and it took the Dubai event on the 26th of the 11th to break that lower part of the channel. Otherwise we've been descending in this channel, and the recent events have broken that. I've drawn a parallel trend line in here to see if that holds it and see whether we just move across one gap. I've also grabbed a few speed angles, and some of them do validate coming up and picking up this trend line across the top, or even moving across into a second channel. We also have another speed line here which can drop us back down onto this line here. Now I'm just going to try and bring that in a little bit closer so that we can make some more information out of it. I've used a 1 hour chart. It uses more accurate candles, and now that we're coming back into this area and making it a bit bigger, we can see that there was a tiny little gap in here. It wasn't big, but it happens to be at exactly this $78 level. Now what I'm finding of interest is that we see that the current candle came up and tested the top of that sideways range, and now it is coming back down and retesting. Now it is using those lines of significance, particularly that gap, and now it's going to be a question of whether that gap now becomes resistance or support. And at this point I think we would have to be starting to look at that gap as being support, and whether it's going to increase and come right back up into this area here, or whether we can come back down and hold. I think you'll find that this 78 point is of high significance.
Yeah.
Now I've moved on to the US yen. Has a high weighting in the US dollar index. My dates of significance seem to be the 27th of the 9th, the 27th of the 10th, 26th of the 11th, and then the 4th of the 12th. There is another one here on the 9th of the 12th I'm not greatly using at the moment, but I've drawn two different Andrews pitchforks across them. The blue one using my dates of significance, the red is then feeding back off those dates looking for the downward channel. We see against the red one, price has come back down. It's had a nice test of it here. It's broken up. Now this is, I believe, called a trigger line, where you're coming from the axis or the handle of the pitchfork through one of its points, and we see the price has broken through it, held by that blue resistance line that held it on the 4th of the 12th, and it has now come back and retested it. I've added one little speed angle in there, but I think that could prove to be a bigger one that's been needed. We see that this price is higher than this price, so this is trying to rally. It hit the resistance, the same resistance that this one hit, but we now have the strength of breaking that trigger line, and I'll be looking for strength coming out of here for the following days. This chart is the Aussie yen. Now it's over the same period as what I was looking at, that US yen. I'm still using this point late in the 9th month, late in the 10th, late in the 11th. So all these pitchforks are in exactly the same points. We see that with the Dubai event, it took a mad dash down following that US yen, and it's hit this trend line coming across the bottom. So we know that that is always a danger, coming back down into that 76, high 75 level. Now we also know that the US yen has broken this high, and yet the Aussie yen is maintaining this tine of the pitchfork. Now we're hanging in on the big blue one, and that brings us down into this area of around the 78 cents. 78 cents to the yen. Now, just moving the chart back a little bit because we don't need to see where that trend line came from. Now, my points of significance would be, we have a medium line coming up in here, and that almost gives a valid target of up in that 85 range. But if we drop back down and we hit the medium time and hit that lower one, we're back down at 74. So we've got a very big range since price is sitting at 80 at the moment. I'll be watching against this resistance time, and then coming back off this support time. So this point here could easily become highly significant in the future. Now we have this trend line coming across the top here, which is also working as a trigger line. Let's see which way price acts around this point here. I have no clear direction, but I have my guidelines. This is a quick look at the gold to the US dollar. I've tried to use exactly the same dates and points for creating the pitchfork. I'm sure it breaks most of the rules of doing pitchforks. I shouldn't be grabbing the low, I should be grabbing a high, but I'm concerned with the dates. I feel that they were significant dates, and I'm looking how they've been affected in the major financial markets. It has actually created a framework that prices come back down into after this blow off top, and now we see that it has walked down the stairs here, and we are just holding the bottom of this one. So I'm just watching to see if it can hold this pitchfork, and otherwise I'll also add in some short-term ones since this one's based over 3 months. But I just thought that was significantly showing the strength in the US dollar, and whether we can continue to hold this pitchfork where it's continuing to rise, whether we're going to break this 1100 mark and is the next step down into this area, which would be lower than the Dubai event. Okay, we're using similar date points, but this time we're gold to the yen. I wanted to just see whether it was the the US dollar or the yen that was getting weaker. We see that we've got a very strong uptrend in here, showing that the yen's been getting weaker as gold sort of maintained its strength. Now, what I found interesting was this Dubai event, the 26th of the 11th, this straight shoot up here, which we also see on the US yen. It was about the yen getting weaker as gold to the yen got stronger. But then the pullback was about the yen getting stronger. Now we see we're into this pattern. What I've also found significant is that if we use this origin point to create this, we're now on a trigger line on a retest. I'm not sure if I'm able to trade this one, but I find that this is significant. Is it going to be gold getting weaker, or is it going to be the yen getting stronger? We will see. I just found it of interest. Now, using the same dates, I'm comparing silver to the US dollar. I charted this one recently and was observing a double bottom in here. We now see that got breached, but now we're maintaining that double bottom pattern again. Now we see that Dubai event had some significance, and we're just maintaining the fork in there. I've tried to draw a trigger line in here, and it's not that advanced yet, so it's just one to keep in mind. We see very strong ranging in this little point here, and I've just drawn a trend line across the bottoms which came up through what I was watching on the double bottom, and we see that that is now acting as resistance. Lastly, this is oil, and we see that the price here hit a point and we have challenged the lower point. Thank you, I've run out of time. I'll try and do some more at another stage. Hope you find it of interest.